It's a good day to learn something new about the neighborhood surrounding you. Scottie's here this morning, ready to say, here's what's happening in Central Florida today. So let there be light and rise up right. Good neighbors, good morning. We've got good news in sight, and maybe some bad news too.
Good morning, Central Florida. This is the Rise and Shine show, and this is your host, Scottie Campbell. Rise and Shine is a show where we look at the most read stories on OrlandoShine.com. These are the most read stories, not necessarily what you might consider the most important stories. In some cases, there'll even be head scratchers wondering why these are the most read stories, but that's part of the fun. This is an opinion show. Editorial, if you will, and myself and my guest would like you to know that the opinions that we're expressing today are not necessarily those of our employers. They are not also the opinions of Rollins College or WPRK 91.5 FM, where you're currently listening to this show live. This is not recorded, folks. It's not recorded. It's not AI. And today I'm excited because I have one of my favorite people in the studio, Misty Heath. Misty, welcome to WPRK and the Rise and Shine show.
Good morning, and thank you. I'm excited to be here with you, Scottie.
So we will get into learning a little bit more about you a little bit later in the show. But right away, we're going to jump into one of the stories. One thing I'll let you know, to these mics, you have to be right on top of them. So we want to make sure everybody hears your opinions about these things. So are you ready to jump into these? I know you did a little studying. So.
I did do some studying, and of course I read Orlando Shine very regularly, given our past history. So yeah, I'm ready to jump into it. Yeah, some are head scratchers for sure today.
Well, this first one I don't think is, because I find it to be a pretty personally a sad story. Clemens Produce on Curryford Road will close permanently on August 31st. So just through the end of the month, you have an opportunity to go to this local grocery store. First of all, a rare thing in the area, period, to have a small business grocery store. Are you a fan of Clemens?
I am, and Clemens is in the neighborhood right next door to where I serve day to day. And so I've been there routinely, been in that shopping center all the time, gone there for years. So it definitely is a sad thing to see some of these legacy businesses drawing to an end. This one is one that has quite a different factors, which we can talk about. But yeah, it's tough to see a lot of our local institutions that we have nostalgia about, calling it quits. And,
for sure.
Yeah, it's tough.
And so factors, I know one of the factors seems to be that the building has sold, because when I was looking at the post that Clemens did on Facebook, that's where they announced this news, didn't really give much of other than we're selling everything. They didn't really go into too much, which is probably admirable. But somebody also commented there's a beloved comic book shop in that same plaza, and that's moving out. So it seems like the timing must have something to do with that.
Sure. So there is definitely a new property owner, and I imagine that shopping center, I haven't looked at all of the components, but working in a lot of the real estate space and in the community, in downtown that I work with, a new owner comes in, we're probably looking at month-to-month leases for a lot of those long-term tenants. And I imagine that for the market, they're probably not paying the rent that is appropriate to the market. And a new investor in a property has to, at some point, look at breaking even. Right. So the math sometimes just is challenging. And I can see both sides of it genuinely, which I know there's this philosophy out there that there's these greedy property owners, and sometimes that's not the case.
It seems to me, actually, that you're putting it very politically, but I think you're on the side of the man.
I'm not necessarily on the side of man, because I think there are some things. I think there are some things that we could ask new owners of shopping centers, and a lot of these are owned by individuals or families that are getting near retirement or sometimes pass away. And in this case, I think it's one of those things where they didn't want to hold that asset any longer.
Yeah.
So there's that.
just time.
And then I can understand their plight from the owner. I know what they paid for it. It's publicly quoted.
Yeah.
And they have to kind of look at how they yield, the return over time. That said, I think there are ways in which we can try to protect those tenants and businesses. Is there a way that we could, work with those folks to slowly ramp up?
Right, exactly.
Like doubling rent in, year over year.
Right.
1 year.
And it reminds me a lot of the situation that's happening in Winter Garden, same thing, where it was an immediate thing rather than a look, I have to, to get here, I need to increase. So let's work this out.
So it's sort of like, day to day, if people are lucky enough to look at cost of living increases, of course there have been inflation, insurance crisis in the state of Florida, and commercial properties are no different. An older building that has probably some rehab to do, maybe a new roof, and maybe new AC systems.
And we should also mention, I compared it to Winter Garden, whereas this is the most of those properties are historic, whereas I would not. I mean, this is an old building, but it's not,
definitely
historic.
It's not in the historic category quite yet, but a building that's been around going on 40 years, definitely is close to that, meeting that threshold. But that said, of course, we want to see places like Clemens stay alive. I will also share that there were new owners. And
of Clemens?
Of Clemens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's happened in the last, don't quote me on this, but 2-ish years. So coming out of the pandemic, there's also new ownership. And sometimes when that happens, it doesn't always retain the same nostalgia that it may once have.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the components here as well. I think it's one of the factors. And certainly people can read on social media their feelings about whether or not, those new owners were honoring the legacy regarding that store.
The Clemens fans did not hold back. I did learn that. So one thing to know is until the 31st, they're going to have 25% off through the closing date. That's excluding bakery items like bagels, banana bread, and sliced bread. So you're going to have to pay full price for those things if you're really into them. The other thing they're doing is they're selling, everything. The shelving, the fixtures, the coolers, the freezers. So if you're interested in opening your own grocery store, hey, Misty, what are you up to these days? You want to open a grocery store with me?
I might go look at some of those refrigerators. I do have a little bit of a entrepreneurial concept in mind I've been thinking about. So,
oh, yeah?
Yeah, I am. I'll tell you about it later.
Well, I was just kidding, but now I think I got myself into something here.
That's what also it's important to think about not just that family, but think about the purveyors and, all of that infrastructure. And are there unpaid bills that, might be owed and due, and understandably, So I also think about that supply chain, and those folks will be affected as well. So those are there are a lot of factors that come into these closings that make them even more devastating when we're talking about local funds being reinvested locally.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, if you're not familiar, that is in the Curry Ford West Main Street, right? If you're not familiar, that's a cool neighborhood. Lots of interesting things over there. So get out and one way that you can make sure that these things don't happen is to patronize these businesses. And let's see, what are we going to do next? I think we're going to play a little song. And then when we come back, we're going to talk to Misty about Misty, if you're willing to
sure, of course.
Reveal.
Yeah.
We're going to get into your origin story.
Okay.
And then all the dirt.
Okay, I'll share some. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'll share the dirt. It's fine.
I should have let you know it was this kind of show.
I'm an open book.
It's a very... All right. Enjoy this bit of music, and then we'll be right back with the Rise and Shine Show. Welcome back to the Rise and Shine Show. You were just listening to I Need Never Get Old by Nathan Rateliff and the Night Sweats. The Rise and Shine Show, if you're just joining us, is a show where we go over the most read stories from OrlandoShine.com. And in the studio with me today to discuss those is Misty Heath. And you're just in time to learn all about Misty.
Oh, dear.
So let's start with really origin. Where were you born?
I was born right here in Winter Park.
What?
So,
Me too.
Yeah, Winter Park
too.
Hospital back in the day.
Winter Park Memorial.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is Orlando Health.
I think
Health?
it's part of the Advent system. now.
Advent Health, yeah. So back when things got to be just named,
Yeah.
not they didn't have to have a brand to them. Me too.
Yeah.
Right down the road from where we are,
Yeah. Blocks
ladies and
away,
gentlemen.
yeah.
Rollins College, just down the road. And so you've lived here steadily all your life, or
So the house my parents live in currently is the house my dad was literally born in.
no way?
So I'm multi-generation Orlando, and then moved around a little bit younger. When I was younger, my dad did serve in the military. My parents are high school.
I don't think I knew this. What branch of the military?
He was in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So
right.
we never had any
One of the
sexy
tougher-
assignments. It was definitely tough, and he worked in airfields, and then also was a trained search and rescue. So
Wow.
the Marine Corps version of a SEAL, of a
Right,
Navy SEAL.
right.
And so that was an interesting upbringing. And then he exited the military when I was in middle school.
Okay.
And then by then his parents had passed, and then my dad had 9 brothers and sisters, so he was able to purchase the house, which then became some of the assets that the other kids inherited. And then we've been here most of their lives, and then I went to high school here and went off to college and thought I was never going to come back to Florida. Orlando had nothing for me.
Where
And
did you go
then
to college?
I went to FSU,
Okay.
and then I went to graduate school at the University of South Carolina.
Oh wow! All right.
yeah.
I also lived in
Go
South Carolina.
Cox. Yeah.
So-
Go Cox, which is
I don't
always
think you're allowed
fun.
to say that on the air.
It's a Gamecock. So, and that's technically who they are.
Right.
And then lived in Texas for quite some time. When my first job out of graduate school
All right.
was in Texas. My master's is in higher ed administration.
Okay.
So I thought I was going to be a public servant, and then 9/11 happened, and funds with, higher education got frozen, which, sounds
Yep.
familiar.
Oh
right?
yeah. It's
And
sadly an
yeah.
ongoing
Yeah.
story.
Ongoing
Yeah.
story. We kind of go through these cycles. Sometimes
Yeah.
that's a little reassuring almost, but also like we're here again.
Right.
And then I got recruited to go into the dark side and worked in finance for a while. And then I got burned out, and then I missed home, missed my family.
You were
needed to come
tired
home.
of money.
Yeah, no family, no kids. Why? What was I working so hard for?
Right.
I really got into the work that I originally did to make a difference, and so was finding that I needed a little more purpose. And so moved home, thought I was going to be here 1 or 2 years to regroup, and now it's almost 12 years later.
Love it. Yeah. Well, I definitely relate to that purpose in a job. I've had the jobs where perhaps there was supposed to be a purpose, and you realize those folks around you don't care about the purpose, or so I definitely have to do something where I'm connected and making an impact. And
Yeah,
that
I think
sounds
you
like
and I are much similar in our ethos when it comes to work and what we want to see. And then over time, if we're not seeing others around us or ability to make some movement and make some change, it can be a little disillusioning.
Yeah, absolutely. I even my background is in theater, and I started out in that for a whole other reason. Then I eventually found out not everybody was in it for the same reason. I wanted to use theater to change the world, and some people just want to be famous and known. But this is not the end of your story.
No, there's so much. Yeah, no, this is the kind of beginning of my story for sure.
Let's talk so you have a relation to Orlando Shine because in a previous iteration of the Brendan O'Connor media empire, you were working closely with him. But then you was it after that you went to Soto Main Street?
Yeah, working and overseeing kind of the sales and partnership side of Bungalower, letting Brendan do the things that he did so well, trying to build the business side of it. We worked.
It's best to just get out of his way.
Yeah, let him do the things that he loves, and then let's try to craft a business around it.
Yeah.
So, I really enjoyed working with trying to understand what was happening in his mind and then channel that voice. And I've always loved storytelling. And so, and it almost gave me that sense of feeling and meaning behind what is the Orlando love story? What makes it unique? And I think I fell back in love with Orlando in that role. And in many ways, much in thanks to Brendan and the relationships that I built and people like you. And it definitely made me feel like this is my home.
Yeah,
that I never had as an adult.
And I think that speaks to that purpose situation where we love this area and we want to let everybody to know all about it and want them to know you're absolutely right. You can go down the road and see Mickey Mouse, but you can also see we have these really cool, interesting neighborhoods, and there's history here and all of that.
So that's how, all of the main streets and the things happening were the things that we were covering. And so in many ways, those main streets were our clients, our stakeholders, and who we were telling stories about. And through that, my predecessor was retiring and just asked me one day, like, hey, is this something that would interest you? And I was like, oh, goodness.
We won't go into it too deeply, but I'm going to put quotation marks around retiring because was that Holly?
No.
Oh, you
Holly,
had somebody in between.
No. That was my colleague, Lynette.
Lynette, okay.
But there were a few others in between Holly.
Previous to Lynette? Oh, no, there was more than one.
Oh, yes.
Holly Venture, when I was doing Ivanhoe Village Main Street, it was called Downtown South at that time. There was a whole trademark something or whether I don't know. At least that's what we were told.
There's a rebrand, and honestly, Downtown South versus Soto, it was one of the more brilliant things that was done. So the legal name is still Downtown South.
It was a time when the main street changed its name and it made sense. Not mentioning any names. I'll just leave that where there are people listening who figured that one out. So Soto, could you kind of give the listeners an idea of what is Soto's boundaries?
So Soto is, as one were to exit downtown and head south on Orange Avenue, the next main street someone would encounter would be Soto. So crossing over, they call it the Southern Gateway into downtown, anchored by the large Orlando Health Campus.
Right.
So one would drive probably down South Orange Avenue, coming out of downtown, heading perhaps to Orlando Health or some of our beautiful neighborhoods like Lake Cherokee, Wadeview, near Boone High School. And it doesn't look like a traditional main street, right? This is an area with a lot of concrete, a lot of parking, a lot of large shopping centers. But that said, we still have a lot of small businesses, and there's a need for a sense of place. We have very mature neighborhoods and people who want to support the neighborhood. And so what my role as a Main Street director looks very different than what an Ivanhoe Village or a College Park looks like. That said, though, people still want community.
That's also going to be the nature of the Main Street program because neighborhoods are changing. It's just a fact. I mean, I know it was rooted in historic preservation, but really the core of it is to make community happen and to support the businesses in the area. So it's okay that Soto looks different. And, yeah,
we're embracing it slowly but surely, and not just slowly but surely, but people really have a sense of. You have a lot of families similar to us who were born there, who were raised there, multi-generational homes. People, I have never until I've worked in that community understood the tie to Boone High School, which is I went to Lake Brantley and I thought that was a tight knit community. Boone is a whole different thing. It is like a cult sometimes. Those people know one another over multiple generations.
And there's something I do have an envy for that because
Same.
I did have a part of my high school was in Michigan, and then I graduated in Germany, Ramstein American High School, and I just I have those pals online, but you're not running into your fellow alums around Orlando, so there is something missing there. But then again, I get to go. I graduated from high school in Germany. So I have a confession to make.
What's that?
9 shows, so I give myself a little break.
I like confessions.
But you're the first person on the show that doesn't have he, him his pronouns.
Oh,
I know.
great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I feel like I should have something for you. But there's gonna be a diversity in our guests.
You're early
but,
in.
But 9 shows. So I appreciate you being being the first, making history. Well, let's jump into another story.
Okay.
This is a big one in terms of the money involved, or the
probably
money
gonna
at
have
least
some
being
hot
proposed.
takes around this. So I'm glad
That's
this is not reflective. I'm glad you said the disclaimer. This is not reflective of our professional opinions.
That's okay, because I've got questions. Dr. Phillips Center pitches $1.5 billion master plan to TDT task force, which, first of all, I feel like the Orlando Dreamers kind of broke the seal on this, where suddenly we're asking like for crazy amounts of money. And if anybody's ever watched a TDT, you can watch these things online where people are pitching there. And there's some folks who are just trying to do, tiny festivals that are very important to the area. And meanwhile, you have these heavy hitters. One thing Dr. Phillips has going for it that the baseball team doesn't is Dr. Phillips Center actually exists. But let's see where to even start. They're looking to expand. It's multiple venues, and I'm not sure they are insisting that there's a need. They are constantly at a 95% capacity, I believe is what they said. So let's jump into this.
So this also includes the lawn development, right? The exterior development to make it more.
Is that the amphitheater part?
Correct.
And it's like huge, 4,000 person outdoor amphitheater. So this also, some of these plans mean something's got to go, right? I mean, or is there land? I guess there's land.
So they've bought a couple of
Street
buildings.
Yeah.
There's been an acquisition of a building directly adjacent right off of Magnolia that is an office building that has some parking. So they've already acquired that, but it hasn't been developed out. I think they're looking to utilize the lawn in a different way. And I think a lot of that programming, again, I'm not pro-man. I live 3 blocks from Dr. Phillips Center, so I see it all the time.
Yeah.
They would like to make that more community facing. So they did the large activation with the Front Lawn series. And I think the goal is to want to make that not always a pay to play situation, but sometimes a little more public facing and a little more access to arts.
I can't remember what the holiday thing was called, but I mean, that was
the front lawn festival.
Yeah.
They don't want it to be called front yard.
Right.
Which was lovely and a good start.
Yeah, was very cool. I'm having a little trouble envisioning this 4,000 person amphitheater in downtown. Okay. That's part of it for me. Is it's hard to understand that there's a need for these additional venues on top of how hefty that price tag is. And the pots of money that it will be dipped into that, then those are funds that can't be used elsewhere. But
so my hot take here is one to Dr. Phillips. If we're looking at building out a convention center, I'd rather a venue in downtown be shooting their shot too. Right. So that's one thing is like, that actually serves not just visitors but residents.
Yeah.
So. I'll give them credit that I'd love to see more of those funds coming into downtown. So if I have to make a theoretical choice, that's where I kind of land.
Yeah.
And because of what I do day to day, that does bring a little more opportunity for economic impact and just vibrance downtown, and perhaps employing more artists and more people again in downtown. Bigger picture. Kind of more substantial question is the utilization of those dollars, and is philosophically what are there's definitely some push to see those dollars that are significant every year, $300+ million coming in through those hotel taxes,
right? And
is there a better or greater use for them? And I think there is growing sentiment that we want to look at that in many residents and
Yeah.
leaders would like to see those funds being able to be applied to other things.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know one of the Scott Maxwell from the Sentinel, one of his things to gripe about is the convention center, which is another. It's funny that you were wise enough to look at that Curry Ford situation from both sides, because the convention center is something, believe it or not, I see from both sides.
Same.
I know about that this is a venue that where they are constantly turning away people despite what our perception of the situation might be. So I'd be curious to hear if the Orlando Sentinel is going to have any opinions about this little.
I certainly foresee that Scott Maxwell will probably do some deep dives into that and has a certain point of view. I look at this through a slightly different lens of course we need and want visitors to our space. And so many jobs thrive off of it. I think hot take is when you think about visitors coming into our space, we don't treat they're not residents. They're not necessarily outside of the bed taxes. They're not paying into our police force, our fire force, infrastructure. But there is impact, right? There's environmental impact of visitors. There's financial impact. There are both positive and negatives. And so there have been some spaces that I have visited in other countries where it's considered both a pro and a con, and offsetting some of those cons through environmental impact, transportation impacts, affordable housing impacts, workforce being pushed to the outer edges to make it more friendly for visitors. I look at through the lens of those dollars that they're leaving in the space from a tax revenue standpoint. How is it making the lives of the folks that they're creating impact to better?
Yeah, I love that take.
That's my hot take on that.
I think that's a hot take, but a cool take, if you will. Well, let's take a music break here. This song is a brand new song. It's called "Stop the Wedding." It's by Ash, and it's one that she had been teasing for a while. If you are listening to this as a podcast, you'll notice that the music is not on the podcast. We had one of our platforms ding us for copyright situation, which we were just ignorant to. So you can only hear those live. However, if you go to YouTube Music, there is a playlist for the Rise and Shine show, so you can catch up on all the cool music. So enjoy this because you're listening live, and we'll be back with the Rise and Shine show with my guest, Misty Heath. Welcome back to the Rise and Shine show. This is your host, Scottie Campbell, here on WPRK 91.5 FM. And I am joined with my guest, Misty Heath, and we are looking at the final 3 stories of the most read stories. Again, just a reminder, the most read stories are just that. They're not necessarily the ones that they're the big story, the one that you think people are going to really read. Those they're in there sometimes, but also there are going to be some other stories that are like, it's interesting. This next one, I will say, does my heart good to find out that Orlando Shine readers are reading it. It sounds like we may have a readership that are not only voters, but voters who want to be informed, because this next story is about 10 newsrooms teaming up for a nonpartisan 2026 voter guide. This is driven by the News Collaborative of Central Florida, which includes it's the Central Florida Public Media, Orlando Sentinel, Winter Park Voice, and a conglomerate of other folks. Did you take a look at this voter guide?
I have not looked at the full voter guide yet, but I'm thrilled similarly over this collective.
Yeah.
I think it's so smart, and thrilled to see them doing iterative almost themes that draws attention to things that are really affecting Central Floridians through local journalism.
I went to vote yesterday out
Nice.
at the Holden Heights Community Center, which if you've never been, it's a gorgeous community center. They did a really good job with a recent renovation, I believe. When I say recent, in a couple of years, but And they've got I can't promise they'll always be there, but there was a sassy group of women there, so I had a good time voting on top of everything else. But I did use this and then also some guidance from friends. I think the thing that particularly trips me up is the judges, and I have a lot of consternation about it, and I feel it's hard to get information about the judges. And this voter guide did help a lot with that. And in some ways, interesting. There was one race, and the judges are nonpartisan. It's a nonpartisan race, I should say. But there was a gentleman who identified his party, and then in so doing also identified one of the other candidates as in that same party. And I said, "Oh, thank you very much for that information."
Yeah,
that tells me something. So he did not do himself favors or the other folks. But
I like to look up key cases just to say, like, I search for cases that they have presided over.
Yeah.
And then I look at it through, their lens of how they help to decision and drive those.
Yeah.
So, thankfully in the age of the internet, it's
you can find out more.
You can find out more versus back in the day when that wasn't readily accessible. So a lot of times, even without these guys make it a little bit more accessible. But that when I'm researching them, I look at cases and ones that have made the news and how they were decisioned or even presided over, because sometimes it's important.
And telling. Well, now this voter guide, the way that it worked was they sent these candidates questions, and they're fairly, they can be frustratingly generic because of course everybody's I care about the people and that kind of thing. So you have to see through those things. It probably isn't a fair thing, but to me it's very telling when the candidates don't participate.
Yeah.
They don't answer the questions. It doesn't seem because these folks are, oftentimes they have a team. I wouldn't say that of the judges because I've known people who've run for judge, and it's usually a kind of a bare bones team. But it's you don't have time to answer. First of all, you should have the answers to those questions already, and you can't take a moment for particularly this clearly to me would have read this collective of people is coming at you with these questions and giving you the opportunity. So if you didn't take it,
I actually there's a writer that is helping Soto with who works for one of these publications as a freelancer and was responsible for one significant race and asking for responses. And one particular candidate they actually did make contact with, and they just declined. And when they tried to then piece together based on prior public record comments, they would not say whether or not their campaign was current. They wouldn't even validate whether or not they had said those things, even though they had been previously reported and confirmed.
Interesting.
So I think some of those candidates are definitely looking at this collective through the lens of these might not be our votership.
Yeah. And now this isn't the only
and
help that you've got out there.
Accountability. It's not a great look, obviously.
Right. No, obviously. So there are other guides out there. You have until the 16th if you want to do early voting. I'm not necessarily. I usually like to go the day, which would be Tuesday the 18th. But had someone who kind of talked me into. The theory, of course, is what if you get hit by a bus, that sort of thing? What if you wind up in the hospital? So now I've voted, and I'm perfectly free to go get hit by a bus. Can clear my schedule.
I mean, what a way to spend that. It does prevent, voting early. It's fewer lines. It's
for sure.
You have more access to different precincts, and
this is also what helps on the actual day. You'll see more people, but it'll be lighter because people did do a mail-in ballot or they went and voted early and took care of it.
And I my pitch for voting in these almost off-cycle elections is, typically less than 20% of the votership turns out to these kinds of elections. And hyper locally, these elections really affect us day to day.
This is a big one. You have the Orange County mayor,
Correct?
And so when people sleep on things like that,
Orange County
I'm just
mayor
puzzled.
and our clerk of courts and
there are is it 6 of the county commissioners that are?
I think it's
5 or
3 or
6?
4, and
Yeah.
some of those new seats are being filled, and so the county oversees an $8 billion budget.
This is impacting your lives. So
right.
get out there and vote. I will say I've misplaced my sticker, and I'm a little upset about it. I don't know. I think it was on my backpack, and backpack was on the floor, so maybe it stuck to Bernie, and maybe he has which is misleading because he did not vote. I happen to know. Bernie's my dog, by the way,
Yeah.
for those who don't realize. Who is this Bernie guy you live with?
Bernie is quite the character. I'm sure he loves that sticker.
Let's see. So the next story is about St. John's River Water Management District. They are Central Florida teachers can apply for up to $3,000 in water science grants through this. And this can have to do, it could be, let's see, water-focused STEAM. That's when you take STEM and put art in the middle of it. STEAM curriculum projects including water quality testing, aquaponics, conservation gardens, and watershed studies. Well, clearly this is something we should be mad about. I don't know. It's actually a great thing. So
I think it's a great thing. The
and
more
this is also-
experiential learning kids can do, and actually opening up funds to teachers to try things
Right.
out. And usually the thing is with new grants like these, the process to get access to them usually isn't super cumbersome.
Yeah.
So I like shooting my shot on grants that are brand new because they're still learning, and so go for it.
So if you want more information about that, I would find the story on orlandoshine.com. There is a URL, but it's a little awkward to be reading on air because it's one with the dashes and the slashes and all that. It's not an easy one. Our last story is about the Orlando Pirates. Have you been to see an Orlando Pirates game?
I've been invited a few times and
Didn't
didn't
make it.
go.
I have not been invited. I'm not sure what that's about, Orlando Pirates.
I'm sure there are plenty of available seats.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Ugh.
Well, I will confess, I'm usually a good sport about sports, but I over time have just there's something it's fallen into the category of baseball for me. Football, I just don't find it that interesting. So I haven't really
We
pursued
like the international football, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Going to see soccer games, and I enjoy hockey. I'll go to a basketball game, although I feel like the NBA has become very corporate and they probably have been for a long time. Scottie has realized how corporate the NBA is the best way to put that. And honestly, it's a long stretch in between getting to see stuff. The Magic Dragon. So that's a long. Nobody cares, but I haven't really pursued an opportunity to see Orlando Pirates in action. But their first season has come to a close. I thought this was also funny that they transferred from Massachusetts, and on Orlando Shine we point out that on their Instagram they haven't changed that.
Oh, neat.
They're still the Mass.Pirates on their Instagram after one season. So maybe maybe they've settled in and they'll feel a little more comfortable, and maybe they can change their Instagram.
I did try to look at like ticket sales and not really publicly available. Yeah. So but also price for entry is really economical. So I have to say, like, if people are looking to get access to sports and might be priced out of the market,
Well, that's good
with
to
the
know.
basketball, but yeah, I think tickets started at like $20. And I think there were some activations where they could there were some block sales and things like that likely were even less. So I like that part. I also like to see venues that are dark often, being utilized in different ways, although I don't know how expensive it is for this team.
This is the Kia Center, and I will tell you that it's not dark very often in there. They've got a lot going on. But yeah, I'm just realizing the campus is starting to wake up. I started the show during the summer, so it was quiet. And we're in a studio here at WPRK where we've got windows on all sides. And people are starting to walk by, and I'm
just looking
and I'm
into
distracted.
your eyes,
I'm like,
Scottie.
I'm trying to talk to Misty, but then I'm like, oh, there goes somebody.
yeah.
Oh,
There
there
are
goes
people.
there are
Mhm.
people, and there are probably going to be more. So I need to get used to that. Let's take a break, and then we're going to come back. And actually, I want to. We were off air, kind of trying to predict stories that we think might be in the most read next week. And so I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay.
Meanwhile, enjoy this music break. This is another new song just released. It's called "Somebody Is Gonna Love Me," and this is by Spencer Sutherland, who I discovered via Instagram, and I enjoy him a bunch, and I hope you do too. Welcome back to the Rise and Shine show. You're joining us just in time to say goodbye if you're just joining us. Are you? Misty's having some trouble with her headphones there. There's your mic. Sorry about that.
You're good.
So predictions. What do you think is going to come up in the most read stories?
I think there are a couple. I think one of the top stories is going to be the Nook coming to a close. That's a really sad one.
Yeah, and a lot of people I think will be weighing, already have started weighing in on that.
Also, though, in true Nook style, they are basically their closing day will be Halloween. And so they're essentially having like a funeral send off on Halloween, which I think is what a way to be able to control your exit.
That and great, and also that's a nice bit of time there that we'll know we have lots of time to, not lots of, but there's a good amount of time to go and go over and patronize.
And they're keeping their programming.
Send-off.
Sorry to talk over you. They're keeping
That's
their
okay.
programming, and I think it's a good time to go say, hey, think about the nostalgia and think about the good times you've had there. Maybe enjoy some food trucks while you're also over there on a Tuesday, and I think what a nice way to be able to control your own exit.
Well, and another story that's impacting the Milk District that I think is going to be rising to the top is about Gringos Loco, which we did not have.
Also facing Soto.
Yeah.
People forget often that there was a location there.
No, I didn't forget. I think I went to all of them and had my double Ds, but they did not give us any heads up. That was pretty, there were like a brief, but not quite enough to get your fill. Yeah.
I think the short end of that one is I think their bread and butter was really the Kia Center operation, and it was very predictable, and that contract was not renewed. And so that's an income stream that was they haven't confirmed that publicly, but inside that's what I have come to understand.
Oh, and that would make an impact.
Yeah.
Well, Misty, thanks so much for being our guest here today on the Rise and Shine show, and all of your insight. It's been very helpful. Want to let everybody know that if you want to learn about these stories, no pressure. This is not a call to action because we can't do that on this station. But these can all be found at orlandoshine.com. You can also, if you'd like, follow us on our socials. On all the socials, it's the Orlando Shine. I think particularly our Instagram is one that we have fun with. And the Rise and Shine show is here on WPRK every Tuesday, except not on the 25th. The 25th, I'm going to be preempted by the president of Rollins. I guess she's going to be DJing. I'm not sure. Maybe she's got some tunes she's going to spin. No, I think it's a serious interview about, the state of Rollins, et cetera. So that's a good reason to be bumped. My feelings aren't hurt or anything. So every Tuesday here. And if you miss it on Orlando Shine, we podcast it. I've heard, Misty, you won't believe this, but I've heard through the grapevine that the podcast, even brand new, this is just the 9th episode, is doing as well as the Orlando Shine show.
Oh.
I know.
Good for you.
Pretty
Congratulations.
Good. So, folks, let's see what we can do about bumping that up.
Yeah, let's bump it up.
Let's bump it up and leave Brennan and the bus in the in the dust. Do we get to still call him the Bus now that it's a completely
I feel like
interest?
he'll always be that.
He'll always
He
be
owns that name. That's his name.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next week.